Hey everybody, Nick Espinoza, your chief security fanatic here. Don't forget to subscribe. And today we have to talk about Starlink being installed into the White House because it's problematic, at least for now. And hear me out here. This is not political. Here's what's going on. Last week, the New York Times reported that the White House is adding basically Wi-Fi from Starlink into the mix for its network infrastructure. As you know, Starlink is owned by SpaceX, which is owned by Elon Musk, who is currently running the Department of Government Efficiency for President Trump. And here we go. And according to a statement from White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt, this was, quote, to improve Wi-Fi connectivity on the complex. Now, this apparently is being donated. Starlink is being donated by Starlink to the White House, which, again, makes sense because, Musk is running Doge, at least, well, not on paper, but he's running it, right? So, I have some serious concerns about this, and let's break this down. And I don't care what the Wi-Fi system is that they're putting in, but there is some specific Starlink things too that we need to consider. So first things first, they're rushing through this process. Now, if you didn't know, the White House Communication Agency, or WHCA, oversees the vetting, acquisition, and implementation of new technologies, such as an internet service provider like Starlink and their wireless technology, or any other ISP that essentially the White House may want. And while specific internal processes from the White House Communication Agency are not publicly detailed, available public information does provide insight into their approach on technology vetting, cybersecurity requirements, and also adoption timelines as well. So, for example, according to NextGov, back in 2012, under the Obama era, the Defense Information Systems Agency, or DISA, which oversees the WHCA, sought to establish a Wi-Fi network across the entire White House campus. This initiative basically was going to support approximately 60 buildings and adjacent outdoor areas that is considered part of the White House complex. Now, this network was basically intended to support access to both Defense Department unclassified networks and also commercial internet, utilizing obviously separate SSIDs. So you'd have one wireless that is for secure, basically unclassified networks for the DoD, and then you'd have another commercial one that essentially obviously had less filtering on it. At the time, 802.11n was the standard that they were going to use. And according to the latest guidance by the GSA, or General Services Administration, there's a lot of hoops that you have to jump through to ensure proper cybersecurity. Now, I'm not going to go through all of the controls, but the big one here, for example, is the implementation that requires the Federal Information Processing Standards, or FIPS, version 140-2, or the newer 140-3 certified products. Basically, these are the ones that have been hardened and vetted for proper security and encryption standards. That essentially is what the White House and all federal agencies have to put in. And so by virtue of that, as we are looking at this, I did a search on the Cryptographic Module Validation Program, or CMVP, which essentially lists the FIPS 140-2 hardware or software that is validated, that can be used in government federal systems. We see a lot of this with the Cybersecurity Maturity Model certification for the Department of Defense for controlled unclassified information or more. And so I did a search for both Starlink and SpaceX, and I found nothing, meaning they are not on the certified CMVP list for FIPS 140-2. So thinking, okay, well, if 140-3 is still in progress, maybe, they're getting tested for that. So then I searched the implementation under test list to see if Starlink or SpaceX was in progress or achieving this, and they didn't show up. Neither of these keywords show up, and you'll see all the normal ones that you would see there. Everybody from Samsung to HP to Palo Alto Networks, they've all got something there, but Starlink doesn't have anything. So in other words, Starlink's Wi-Fi is not cryptographically hardened enough with proper validation and specifications to be put into a building as sensitive as the White House. Now, the second point I want to make is there are other, I think, several different security issues at play here. Now, if they don't have full monitoring of this Starlink connection for things like anomaly and events, malware, and all of that, then an attacker may be able to compromise these Starlink devices or maintain persistence in equipment without the U.S. government gaining any kind of insight into this. We don't know how they are potentially filtering it. And on top of it, if Starlink allows for things like remote management tools, whether it's for hardware or software, somebody over on that end then could get remote access into the White House networks, very possibly at will. And then obviously that's ripe for abuse. These are huge things that need to be vetted and ensured that if it is there, these are removed, these are turned off, these are heavily controlled, et cetera, et cetera. And while basically the Wi-Fi is not typically used for, like, let's say, heavily classified things, because obviously wireless infrastructure is a lot more easy to attack than hardwired infrastructure, there is going to be sensitive computers, sensitive equipment, sensitive people, and sensitive data that is going to flow through this. Controlled unclassified information is stuff that shouldn't be getting out to the public and will be possibly used on these wireless systems. And the third point I want to make is that it's just weird. Starlink really is a weird choice. And think about it. Satellite internet is designed to be used in places that have virtually no access or little access to terrestrial internet service, meaning landlines. You can't wire up in the middle of nowhere. So Starlink is great for that. And instead of a traditional modem or gateway from an internet service provider, Starlink customers get special panels that they install on a roof or other outdoor place to receive connectivity from orbiting satellites. So, are they installing these panels on the roof of the White House? No, they're being installed miles away at a White House data center, and then that connectivity is being routed back in to the wireless infrastructure using fiber lines. That's really bizarre. Starlink as a satellite service is known, for the record, to have better latency and speed than many of its low orbit competitors, but it's nowhere near as capable as all of the fiber providers that are in the Washington, D.C. area. Starlink could not touch the speed or latency of fiber with its service that sends a signal from low orbit. And if you're thinking, well, okay, satellite could be a backup to this, well, then it's not necessarily for improving wireless, right? Because, and again, a fiber optic connection is going to be vastly faster. And it's not like the U.S. government really doesn't have its own satellite infrastructure, right? We have spy satellites everywhere. By virtue of that, they're not necessarily low orbit, but the point is that we have a million different choices that would be faster, not to mention our own internal government hardened infrastructure in low orbit as well that we could use. So it's just odd. And the last thing I want to mention is that I think what's weird is that it's also tied to Elon Musk. Now, let me explain this, because we all know he's running the Department of Government Efficiency, aka DOGE, but by virtue of that, White House administrations change, right? Maybe in 4 years, we have somebody that is not Donald Trump in office, like maybe the Democrats win, whatever. So the White House could create a long-term federal dependence on an Elon Musk-controlled service, and I think that could create future instability. So, for example, basically just recently, European officials raised concerns basically earlier in March on whether Starlink might just stop serving Ukraine. Remember, the Ukrainians started adopting it initially in the war, and Elon Musk initially came out and said, I'm going to give the Ukrainians a whole bunch of Starlink connections so that they can continue to basically fight their war. But more recently, Musk has said that he's publicly against the Ukrainians. He might just shut off their access and all of that, giving him a vast amount of control of basically national security for Ukraine, obviously access to the battlefield, all that kind of stuff virtually. And then he went back and clarified on social media also after these European officials complained and basically said, well, no, we're not going to do that. We would never shut it off. But he's already done that once. He did that within the first 6 months of the war because the Ukrainians weren't paying their bill. And so you are beholden to somebody that is a political partisan. I don't care if you love or hate Elon Musk. I don't care if you love or hate Trump. It's not political. I don't think that anybody that is super partisan should have basically control or access or management of an internet service provider. It should be essentially as neutral as we can possibly make it. And that protects both Republicans and Democrats. So we'll see what happens, but I'm not a fan of this. And that's what's going on. So I guess the White House is getting Starlink. Best of luck to us all. And please like, share, follow me here on Facebook and Twitter at NickAESP. And please feel free to subscribe to me at YouTube as well. And as always, stay safe, stay online, and please, please, please attempt to stay private and informed. Take care.